Listen to me very carefully. We are staring at a real estate crisis in 5 specific states, and if you're thinking about buying property in any of them, you're about to light your money on fire. I don't care about your money, I'm here just to warn you. I'm Kevin O'Leary, and I don't sugarcoat things when it comes to your money. I've been doing this for 40 years, and I'm telling you right now, 5 states are absolute disasters for real estate investors in 2026. Now, let me set the stage for what's happening in American real estate right now. We're seeing the largest migration patterns in modern history. People are voting with their feet. They're leaving high tax, high regulation states and flooding into low tax, business friendly states. And this isn't a small trend. From 2020 to 2024, Florida gained 872,722 residents through domestic migration. Texas gained over 1,260,000. Idaho led the nation with a 6% population increase. But here's where it gets really interesting. While some states are winning, 5 states are getting absolutely crushed. California has lost 1.465 million residents. That's the largest outflow in the country. New York lost 1.757 million. Illinois lost 881,000. New Jersey lost 350,000. And Connecticut, they're bleeding residents at rates that haven't been seen since the manufacturing collapse of the 1970s. Now, you might be thinking, Kevin, population changes happen all the time. And you're right, but this is different. This is structural. This is permanent. Because it's not just about the number of people leaving, it's about who's leaving and how much money they're taking with them. From 2013 to 2022, New York lost $517.5 billion in resident income. Think about that, $500 billion. New Jersey lost $170 billion. California lost $102 billion. Illinois lost $63 billion. That's not just people moving, that's tax base evaporation, that's the productive class fleeing, that's the people who actually pay taxes saying, I'm done. And when the tax base shrinks, what happens? Governments don't cut spending. They raise taxes on the people who remain, which causes more people to leave. It's a death spiral. And if you own property in these states, you're going to get crushed. I saw this in 2008. I saw people lose everything because they didn't see the warning signs. They believed property values always go up. They believed their local market was different. They were wrong, and they paid a brutal price. The numbers don't lie. Migration patterns don't lie. And right now, these 5 states are screaming danger. State number 1, California. The first state you must avoid is California. And I'm not just talking about San Francisco or Los Angeles. I'm talking about the entire state. Let me give you the numbers. California loses a taxpayer every 1 minute and 44 seconds. Every single day, the state is hemorrhaging productive residents. From 2020 to 2024, California lost 1.465 million residents to domestic migration. Now, the state government will tell you their population is growing, and technically, they're right. But here's what they're not telling you. The only reason California's population isn't collapsing is because of 934,000 international migrants during that same period. They're replacing domestic outmigration with immigration. And those are not the same economic profiles. The people leaving California earned significant incomes. The Internal Revenue Service tracks this. In 2020 alone, California saw $29 billion in taxpayer funds leave the state. That's in 1 year. What are people running from? Taxes, housing costs, regulation, quality of life. You've got state income tax that can hit almost 14% at the top bracket. That's crushing. And what are you getting for all those taxes? Crumbling roads, failing schools, a homelessness crisis that's completely out of control, rolling blackouts, water shortages, and a business environment that's openly hostile to job creators. But here's the real problem for real estate investors. When you lose the productive class, property values don't stabilize. They decline because the people with money are leaving, and the people who remain can't afford to pay California prices. I've watched this happen. I've seen markets that people swore would never decline get absolutely destroyed. California is no different. The structural problems aren't going away. The tax burden isn't going down. The cost of living isn't improving. And if you're sitting there thinking, well, maybe I'll buy in California because prices have dropped, you're catching a falling knife because the downside isn't over, not even close. California lost $4.5 billion from excessive outmigration, not just this year, every year thereafter. These cumulative effects compound. They build, they create long-term structural decline. Smart money left California years ago. If you're buying real estate there now, you're betting against the numbers, you're betting against migration patterns, you're betting against common sense. California loses one taxpayer every 1 minute 44 seconds, lost $29 billion in taxpayer funds in 2020, lost 1.465 million residents 2020 to 2024. State income tax hits 13.9% at top bracket, state number 2, Illinois. The second state you need to avoid is Illinois. And if California is bad, Illinois might be worse. Illinois just earned a dubious honor. They now have the highest combined state and local tax burden in the entire nation. Illinoisans pay 16.5% of their annual income in state and local taxes. That's $13,099 for a household earning the median U.S. income of $79,004. But wait, it gets worse. Illinois has the second highest property tax rate in the country at 2.07%. The average family pays $6,285 in property taxes. That's more than double the national average of $2,969. Think about what that means if you own an investment property. Your carrying costs are enormous, your cash flow is terrible, and your tenant pool is shrinking because people can't afford to live there. Illinois lost population for 9 consecutive years. They lost 420,678 residents to domestic outmigration since 2020. The state only showed growth recently because of a massive spike in international migration. But that's temporary, and those newcomers face the same tax and economic problems that drove out the long-term residents. Here's what really concerns me. Over 50% of Illinois voters cited high taxes as the main reason they would move out of state if given the chance. That's not a minority opinion. That's a majority ready to flee. And it's not just talk. Illinois loses a taxpayer every 6 minutes and 4 seconds. The state has nearly 7,000 local government units with the power to demand property taxes. That's more than any other state in the country. What does that create? A tax nightmare. Multiple layers of government all competing to extract revenue from a shrinking base of taxpayers. Now, some people will say, Kevin, migration has slowed down. The exodus isn't as bad as it was. And they're technically correct. 5 years ago, the ratio of people leaving Illinois compared to those moving in was almost 2 to 1. Now it's approaching 1 to 1. But here's the problem. That's not good news, because the working premise is that the people who paid higher taxes left first. They're already gone. What's left is a population that can't afford to leave, and a government that has no choice but to keep raising taxes to maintain services. If you own property in Illinois, you're stuck between rising property taxes and declining demand. That's not a recipe for wealth building. That's a recipe for financial disaster. Illinois has highest combined tax burden at 16.5% of income, property taxes at 2.07%, second highest in nation, lost 420,678 residents since 2020, loses taxpayer every 6 minutes, 4 seconds, state number 3, New York. The third state you must avoid is New York, and this one hurts because New York was once the financial capital of the world. New York lost $111 billion in net adjusted gross income over the past decade. From IRS tax filing data covering 2011 to 12 through 2021 to 22, New York lost a net 1.757 million residents to domestic migration. That's the second largest population loss in the country, behind only California. New York loses a taxpayer every 2 minutes and 23 seconds. Every single day, productive residents are packing up and leaving, and the tax burden is obscene. New Yorkers pay the highest total tax burden in the nation. They pay 14% of their personal income in state and local taxes. They face the highest individual income tax rate, the second highest corporate income tax collections per capita, the fourth highest property taxes. New York City specifically, it's even worse. Counting state and local taxes, New York City collects an average of $12,751 per capita. That's more than California's $10,346, and it's significantly higher than almost every other high-tax state. But here's what's really interesting. The 2025 New York City mayoral election brought in a progressive candidate named Zohran Mamdani, who campaigned on raising the city's income tax on the richest residents from 3.9% to 5.9%. Combined with the state income tax of 10.9% for the top bracket, that would cement New York City's position as having the highest taxes on top earners in the entire country. Now, some academics will tell you that rich people don't actually move because of taxes, and there's some truth to that. Millionaires have low migration rates under normal circumstances. Only about 2.4% of them move annually. But here's what those academics miss. When social and economic disruptions happen, migration spikes. During COVID-19, millionaires left high-tax states in huge numbers. And more importantly, it's not about millionaires. It's about the middle class. It's about small business owners. It's about the people who actually make a local economy function. And those people are fleeing. From 2023 to 2025, 55% of middle-income earners who moved out of New York left the state entirely. They're heading to Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Texas. What does that do to New York real estate? It creates a bifurcated market. Ultra-luxury properties in Manhattan, they're fine. They're bought with cash by international buyers and the truly wealthy. But everything else? It's struggling. Retail foot traffic in Manhattan remains below 50% of 2019 levels. The office sector is in crisis, and residential property outside of prime Manhattan locations is facing declining demand from the exact demographic that used to sustain those markets. If you're buying investment property in New York right now, you're betting that migration reverses. You're betting that taxes come down. You're betting that quality of life improves. I don't take those bets. The numbers don't support them. New York lost $111 billion in adjusted gross income over past decade, lost 1.757 million residents 2011 to 2022, loses taxpayer every 2 minutes, 23 seconds. NY City collects $12,751 per capita in taxes, state number 4, New Jersey. The fourth state to avoid is New Jersey. And this might be the saddest story of all because New Jersey has been losing residents for 7 consecutive years. New Jersey has the highest property tax rate in the entire nation at 2.49%. The median annual property tax payment is $9,541. Let me say that again, nearly $10,000 per year in property taxes. On a $400,000 home, you'll pay $8,920 in property taxes in New Jersey. Buy that same home in South Carolina, and you'll pay $2,040. That's a difference of $6,880 per year. That's $573 more per month in your mortgage payment just for the privilege of living in New Jersey. And what do you get for those taxes? Not much. The infrastructure is crumbling, the schools are overcrowded, the business environment is hostile, and the government response to budget problems is always the same: raise taxes. From 2013 to 2022, New Jersey lost $170.1 billion in resident income. That's people taking their money and leaving permanently. New Jersey loses a taxpayer every 14 minutes and 14 seconds, and the demographic that's leaving is telling. Retirees are fleeing faster than any other group. After decades of paying sky-high taxes, seniors are discovering their retirement dollars stretch dramatically further in states like Florida, North Carolina, and Tennessee. Around a third of people surveyed said they were leaving New Jersey because they were retiring. They paid their taxes for decades. They raised their families, and the moment they retired, they left. That should tell you everything you need to know. People who spent their entire lives in New Jersey couldn't wait to leave the second they had the freedom to do so. Now, recent data shows the exodus may be slowing. In 2025, about 54% of movers were leaving New Jersey, while 46% were moving in. That's approaching balance. But here's the critical question. Are the people moving in equal to the people moving out in terms of economic value? The answer is no. The people leaving are higher earners. The people moving in are lower earners or retirees moving from even more expensive states like New York. If you're buying investment property in New Jersey, you're fighting demographics, you're fighting taxes, you're fighting a government that has no plan to fix the structural problems. New Jersey has highest property tax rate at 2.49%, median property tax payment $9,541, lost $170 billion, $100 million in resident income 2013 to 2022, loses taxpayer every 14 minutes, state number 5, Connecticut. The fifth and final state to avoid is Connecticut, and Connecticut represents the death spiral in miniature. Connecticut has the fourth highest property tax rate in the country at 2.14%. The state income tax burden is crushing, and the overall tax climate has driven away residents for over a decade. In 2021, 60.1% of moves in Connecticut were people leaving the state. The reasons cited: winter weather, high taxes, expensive housing, high property taxes. But here's what makes Connecticut particularly concerning. It's surrounded by states that are also struggling. New York to the west, Massachusetts to the north, Rhode Island to the east. The entire region is experiencing the same pattern: high taxes, declining services, and outmigration. Connecticut has lost businesses, it's lost jobs, it's lost young people. What's left is an aging population and a government that can't reduce spending because it has pension obligations and infrastructure needs. And real estate prices, they're under pressure, not crashing, but grinding lower. Because who wants to buy into a market where the long-term trend is population decline, tax increases, and service cuts? Connecticut is the canary in the coal mine for the entire Northeast. It's showing what happens when you combine high taxes, declining demographics, and no political will to reform. If you're thinking about buying property in Connecticut as an investment, ask yourself this: who is your future buyer? Who is the greater fool that's going to pay you more than you paid? Because the demographics say there are fewer buyers every year. Connecticut property tax rate 2.14%, fourth highest. 60.1% of moves in 2021 were outbound. Entire Northeast region experiencing similar patterns. Now let me reinforce why these five states are so dangerous and why you need to avoid them completely. First, understand the pattern. When a state loses population, it doesn't just lose people. It loses economic dynamism, it loses tax revenue, it loses the entrepreneurs and job creators who drive growth. And when tax revenue declines, governments don't respond by cutting spending. They respond by raising taxes on the people who remain, which causes more people to leave, which causes more tax increases. It's a death spiral. I remember when I was building my education software company, we looked at expanding into several states. We ran the numbers on taxes, labor costs, regulatory environment, and quality of life. Some states made sense, others didn't. The states that didn't make sense, they're the same ones that are losing population today because businesses and individuals respond to the same incentives. They want low taxes, they want predictable regulation, they want quality of life. These five states fail on all three dimensions. Now, let me address the argument that some people make. They say, Kevin, property is cheap in these states. That's a buying opportunity. That's wrong. That's dangerous thinking. Cheap is not the same as undervalued. Something can be cheap and still be expensive if it's going to zero. When you're evaluating real estate, you're not just buying a property. You're buying into an entire ecosystem. You're buying into the local economy. You're buying into the tax structure. You're buying into the political environment. You're buying into the demographic trends. In California, Illinois, New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, every single one of those factors is negative. The local economies are struggling. The tax structures are oppressive. The political environments are hostile to wealth creation. And the demographic trends are pointing in the wrong direction. Compare that to states like Florida, Texas, Tennessee, and North Carolina. Those states have no income tax or low income tax. They have business-friendly regulations. They have growing populations. They have positive demographic trends. That's where smart money is investing. That's where real estate values are stable or appreciating. That's where you can actually generate cash flow and build wealth. Let me give you a specific example. In Florida, the state gains a new taxpayer every 2 minutes and 9 seconds. In Texas, every 2 minutes and 53 seconds. Those states are collecting billions more per year for their budgets from people moving in. That's growth. That's economic expansion. Now compare that to California losing a taxpayer every 1 minute and 44 seconds. Or New York losing one every 2 minutes and 23 seconds. That's contraction. That's economic decline. And here's the thing, these trends are accelerating, not reversing. COVID-19 showed people they could work remotely. They could live anywhere. And when they had that choice, they chose low tax, high freedom states. That genie is not going back in the bottle. Remote work is permanent for millions of Americans, and that means the competitive pressure on high-tax states is only going to increase. The states that don't adapt will continue to lose, and their real estate markets will reflect that reality. Now, I'm not saying you can never buy property in these states. I'm saying you need to understand exactly what you're getting into. You're buying into declining markets with negative demographic trends and oppressive tax structures. That's not an investment, that's speculation. And I don't speculate with my money. I invest based on fundamentals. The fundamentals in these 5 states are terrible. The trends are clear. The data is unambiguous. If you're buying property there, you're swimming against the current, and eventually the current always wins. Let me summarize what we've covered today. 5 states you must avoid in 2026 for real estate investment. First, California, losing a taxpayer every 1 minute and 44 seconds, lost 1.465 million residents from 2020 to 2024. State income tax hits 13.9%. Housing crisis, regulatory nightmare, structural decline. Second, Illinois, highest combined state and local tax burden in the nation at 16.5% of income. Second highest property taxes at 2.07%. Lost 420,678 residents since 2020. Death spiral economics. Third, New York. Lost $111 billion in adjusted gross income over the past decade. Lost 1.757 million residents, highest total tax burden, new political leadership threatening even higher taxes, middle class fleeing. Fourth, New Jersey, highest property taxes in the nation at 2.49%, median annual property tax payment of $9,541, lost $170.1 billion in resident income from 2013 to 2022. 7 consecutive years of population loss. Fifth, Connecticut. Fourth highest property taxes at 2.14%. 60.1% of moves are outbound, surrounded by other failing states. No clear path to recovery. This is about discipline. This is about making smart decisions based on data, not emotion. These 5 states have structural problems that aren't being fixed. Their governments refuse to reform. Their tax burdens keep rising, and their populations keep shrinking. If you own property in these states, you need to seriously evaluate whether that exposure makes sense for your portfolio. If you're thinking about buying property in these states, you need to understand you're fighting the trend. Real estate is about location, and location isn't just about the property, it's about the state. It's about the tax structure. It's about the demographic trends. It's about whether the local government is creating value or destroying it. In these 5 states, government is destroying value every single day through bad policy, through high taxes, through hostile regulations. Don't let that destroy your wealth. If you found this valuable, I need you to take action right now. Smash that like button. This tells the algorithm to share this message with more people who need to hear it. People who are about to make terrible real estate decisions need this information. Share this video with your friends and family. Send it to people you care about. If they're thinking about buying property in any of these 5 states, they need to watch this. This could save them hundreds of thousands of dollars. Leave a comment below. Tell me what you're seeing in your local market. Tell me if you live in one of these states. Tell me if you've considered leaving. I want to know what you're thinking. I read these comments. And consider becoming a member of this channel for exclusive content. We're building a community of serious investors who understand that protecting your wealth is just as important as growing it. This isn't about getting rich quick. This is about avoiding catastrophic mistakes. This is about understanding that where you invest is just as important as what you invest in. We're building an army of smart investors who make decisions based on cold, hard data, who understand that demographics matter, who understand that government policy matters, who understand that you can't build wealth in states that are actively hostile to wealth creation. That's what this community is about. So hit subscribe, join us, and let's protect our wealth together. Stay smart, stay disciplined, and remember, you don't fight structural trends. You identify them early and position yourself accordingly. The 5 states I've outlined today are in structural decline. Their real estate markets will reflect that reality. Don't be the person who learns that lesson the hard way. Protect your wealth and live the life you deserve.